These are on. We're green, so I can give a countdown whenever you're ready.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay, we are live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good morning, everybody. It is Friday, March 31st. We are in Rockville with a special guest, Maryland Comptroller Brooke Lierman. Comptroller, nice to see you here.
Nice to be here. Thank you. My first time to this beautiful building. I'm really excited.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, I know you're spending your day in Montgomery County, so really glad that you extended an invitation for this conversation. Before we do introductions, and I know we all know each other here, but introductions will be important. I wanted to say that, one, I very much appreciate you and the engagement and the dedication to all 24 jurisdictions, and especially Montgomery County, your original home, right? But in preparing for this conversation, we were looking, my team and I were looking at the Maryland Constitution. And the Maryland Constitution, Article 6, says the Comptroller shall have the general superintendence of the fiscal affairs of the state. He shall digest and prepare plans for the improvement and management of the revenue and for the support of the public credit. Well, Madam Comptroller, you are no he. And perhaps we now know what the next amendment to the Maryland Constitution shall be, right? But sincerely and genuinely, thank you for being here. And so with that, I know that we have until about noon, and so I'd love to go around. We'll start with Council Vice President Wheaton, just for brief introductions.
Good morning. Are we asking questions now or just
No, just introductions.
Andrew Friedson, currently Vice President. I chair the Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee, serve on the Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee. I'm in my second term, and I represent District 1, Bethesda, Chevy Chase, Potomac, or what you'd like to call home.
Yeah,
that's right. That's right.
That's great. Thanks.
Good morning, Madam Comptroller. I'm Sidney Katz. I represent District 3, which is Rockville, Gaithersburg, Washington Grove, the municipal boundaries, and a little beyond. I'm the chair of the Public Safety Committee and serve on the Government Operations Committee.
Great. Good morning, Kate Stewart. I represent District 4, which is Tacoma Park, Silver Spring inside the Beltway, Kensington, Garrett Park, parts of Chevy Chase, a little bit of Bethesda and North Bethesda, and your wonderful nieces. Yeah. I chair Government Operations and Fiscal Policy, and I am serving on the Transportation and Environment Committee. Great. Hey, good morning. So nice to see you again. Marilyn Balcom, District 2, which is Germantown, Clarksburg, Poolsville, North Potomac, and Darnestown, and a major swath of the agricultural reserve. And so great to see you. And Transportation Environment and the newly formed Economic Development Committee.
Hello, Madam Comptroller. Go Vikings. I am just starting my second term, one of our 4 at-large members. I chair the Health and Human Services Committee and switched over from public safety to education and culture this term.
Great. Thanks.
Hi. Good morning, Madam Comptroller. So happy to see you here always in Montgomery County. Lori Ann Sales. I am a member of the Health and Human Services Committee and the Economic Development Committee, and I was recently named lead for eliminating health disparities. So looking forward to a very busy term.
Yes, thank you.
Hi, I'm Dawn Lukey, and I represent District 7, which is only Ashton, Sandy Spring, Brookville, Laytonsville, Damascus, Montgomery Village, and Durwood, and is the other half of the Ag Reserve, split with Councilmember Balcom. I serve on the Public Safety Committees and HHS Committees, and I'm the Council's lead for crisis response.
Oh, great. Okay, nice.
And send regrets from those who were unable to attend. It is a Friday, so there were other plans that were made. But open it up for a fun conversation.
Thank you. Well, I'm just so delighted to be here. Thank you for coming in on a Friday. I appreciate it. And I want to start by introducing some of our team. You know me, Brooke Lierman, 34th Comptroller of the state of Maryland. But I also have with us Eve Schuman. Eve is our Intergovernmental Affairs Director. She was formerly with Senator Van Hollen, and we're just thrilled to have her on board. This is the first time that the Comptroller's Office has a full-time dedicated Intergovernmental Affairs Director. Out of our transition team and throughout my campaign, getting around the state, realized just how important it is that we build stronger connections with our county governments and our municipal governments, as well as, registers of wills, county clerks, and we needed a full-time dedicated staff for that. So really excited to have Eva on board. And then we also have Eva Lewis. Eva is our State Public Engagement Director. Some of you may know her from her previous job at the Maryland Democratic Party, but we're really thrilled to be creating a new Office of Public Engagement to make sure that we're being intentional about how we reach out and proactively reach out to community members, not just when people come in and need tax help, but that we're actually getting out in the community in a proactive way as well. And last but not least, the great Caroline Bauk, who we are delighted to have as our government affairs associate as well, working in our office, and just thrilled to have her on board and here as well. So really happy to be here with all of you. You sent me some questions, but if you don't mind, I'd love to just sort of open up by talking about what we've been doing the past 74 days. So 74 days into office. Really excited about how things are going. Maybe also counting down the days till the General Assembly session is done, and when we get our FY24 budget. Thrilled. Should just start actually by saying thank you to all of you. I'm here because of you, and because of Montgomery County and so many friends around the state who really stepped up to say that it was time to break a glass ceiling and elect someone who had a vision for the Comptroller's office that did include the entire general superintendents of the fiscal affairs of the state. Really making sure that we're being intentional about building strong communities, making sure that we're creating more equitable communities, more prosperous communities, and more resilient communities. And that is really our focus. So excited now to be on board. Thanks to those of you who joined us for the inauguration. It was a lot of fun. We had a robust transition team. As soon as I was elected, thanks to those of you who served, we had lots of folks from Montgomery County serve on our 100-person transition team. We divided into several work groups so that we could identify the needs and challenges in the office, but also come up with solutions. And we had one of those work groups was local government, to make sure that we were thinking and being intentional about how we could engage with our local government partners. So really excited about the recommendations that came out from that, and we'll follow up with an email and drop off our transition reports for all of you so that you can take a look at what we were able to pull together, because I'm really proud of it. It's also on our website, marylandtaxes.gov, where you can visit, go to our transition page and visit our transition report. From there, sworn in January 16th, we hit the ground running. We have, I'll mention sort of the internal things that we're working on and the external things that we're working on. So internal, I'll say three things. One is we are reorganizing. We've reorganized the leadership structure of the Comptroller's office to create more accountability and more oversight. So there used to be one deputy comptroller and a chief of staff, and under the deputy comptroller, he had 20 direct reports and almost 1,000 staff. So we've reorganized to make sure that there is more accountability and more direct lines of communication. So we have our Chief Deputy Comptroller, Andy Schoffel, who is there. He oversees our revenue operations and accounting. We now have a Deputy Comptroller for Law and Oversight, and the Office of Law and Oversight has all of our legal division, our hearings and appeals, our unclaimed property, and our Field Enforcement Bureau that deals with motor fuels and other field enforcement issues. We have an Office of Public Engagement and Communications, and so that office is also seen by our Deputy Comptroller, and really excited about the public engagement work that we're thinking about doing, and look forward to hearing your thoughts as well. And then we have an Office of Policy, Public Works, and Investment that will be working on economic development work, overseeing our public works, working on our pension issues, right? There's so much to make sure that we're securing our pension, but also being smart about our investments in terms of climate change, risk. Just last week, we learned that a company that we have investments in through a third party was violating child labor laws. So we sent a letter. We're doing more direct engagement with the funds that we invest in to make sure that they are, keeping the watch on the companies that they invest in as well. So there's a lot of work to be done around there. And then we are the first ever CIO for the Comptroller's office, because there's so much work to do in the tech space and in our IT space and really modernizing the agency. And that's the number two thing within our internal work is really about modernization, but it's also first and foremost about the employee experience. So today we were in Wheaton. I know Natalie's not here, but our Montgomery County branch office is in Wheaton, and I was delighted to meet with our employees there. This is one of our busiest, if not the busiest, office in the state of Maryland, and so we want to make sure that we have a great team in the Comptroller's office and that we keep them. We are competing with the IRS. We are competing with the counties. We're all, to make sure we get the best employees. And we have to make sure that we have space and that we have enough budget and that we have enough pins, right? Enough positions so that we can hire people and serve our shared constituents. You have constituents who have great needs, whether they're business owners who are new to this country and need to understand our tax structure, whether they're big companies who need private letter rulings about their taxes that they owe, whether they're individual families who, just need some help to navigate the system. And we need to make sure that we have the people in place to do that. So we're really dedicated to improving the employee experience for the Comptroller staff so that they can serve all of our constituents. And then the final internal thing I will mention is that we need to modernize. The first step in that was hiring a CIO, but you might have seen earlier this tax season, our tax processing system went down for a week. Our tax processing system is based on a mainframe computing system and uses the programming language COBOL. Yes. It's like older than I am. I was going to say that might be the only language I speak. My freshman year in college.
Unbelievable.
And so we simply have to move to a cloud-based computing system. We also we are the accountants for the state of Maryland. We pay all the bills, all the agencies, all your businesses who get capital grants, all the nonprofits, all the work that comes through the Board of Public Works. We cut all those checks. We balance all those books. We also do that through a COBOL-based system. So there is on a mainframe. So there is so much work to do to modernize this agency. And we don't modernize just for the sake of modernization, right? We do it because we need a better product that can bring more transparency to the work that we're doing, that allows us to crunch numbers and run data that can be helpful for producing reports so that we understand how we're spending our money and how we can do better. And that's really what we're focused on, is making sure that we can improve the experience for Marylanders. And that's why we need to modernize. So those are really the internal things that we're working on. The external, I will say, is that we are totally focused on reimagining how the office can make an impact in the lives of Marylanders. That has to do with making sure that we have the right staff in place, working with our local governments, having a public engagement team, working with organizations like the Cash Campaign, with CASA, who also does tax prep, with the VITA programs. We kicked off our tax season. I saw Lorianne at a VITA program this year in Montgomery County. So we want to make sure that we're supporting those agencies. We also want to make sure that we're closing the tax gap in the state, so you all have the revenue that we need to do the work that we all need to do, and that we are, at the end of the day, spending our money through the Board of Public Works in a way that doesn't just erect structures, but that actually builds communities. So really being intentional about how we're spending our tax dollars. So really excited to be here with all of you today. Thanks so much for having me, and happy to dive into your questions and talk more about what we can do to work together. So thank you.
Fantastic. Well, you got a full plate in the first few months, but you have a good team to help you do that work. And appreciate you stopping by the Wheaton office earlier today. And as you and I were chatting before, one of 11 offices and quite possibly the busiest office. And so I'm curious, because your one office in the county is in Wheaton. And what are you hearing from that office? What are people coming to you and asking help for that might spill over to us? What should we be informed about the concerns you're hearing in Wheaton?
Sure. So some of the things that the staff were talking with us about were, first I would say, there are, there's always confusion when you get tax notices. You don't know why, you don't know what it was. And so one of the things that we're looking at is how to make our form letters clearer. In fact, somebody texted me on my way here and said, I got this letter, what does it mean? And so we want to make sure that we're, improving our written materials, because sometimes that's the first interaction you have with the comptroller's office is you get a letter in the mail and you're like, I didn't know I owed this. Why do I owe this? What is this from? Oftentimes you all will be the first people who get called. Somebody might send you a screenshot of the letter and say, what is this? How do I figure this out? We want to make sure that you know and have a contact in our office so that you can instantly get that communication, right? So that you can go to Eve and Eve can track down what that letter means, where it's from, how to get help, so that we can help you in that way. So I think that's one, is just the individual letters that get sent out, people don't know. There are also questions about there were also often questions from local business owners. I met with some immigrant business owners while I was in Wheaton too, and actually they had really positive experiences with the comptroller's office, which was really great to hear, and they feel really good and supported in the work that we're doing. So I was really happy to hear that, and they just want to make sure that we can continue to provide the level of customer service that exists, and we want to be able to provide that too. Making sure that we have materials in other languages, making sure that we have the staff available. So I think the constituent service is often the place where we react. I think one of the other mentions is sometimes businesses will have not be in good standing. And so then they cannot qualify for, they can't get grants or loans, right? And so that came up as well, is that they'll have business owners walk in and say, well, I'm not in good standing. What does this mean? I'm trying to I need to get this fixed tomorrow so I can get this loan from Montgomery County or this grant from Montgomery County or from the state. Those also, we can fix those, right? You're not in good standing with SDAT, but it's because of something that's happened with the comptroller's office. So it's pretty confusing, actually, because you might get the letter from SDAT and not know where it came from. Oftentimes it is because of unpaid taxes. And so I just say to you all, if a business owner comes in or some nonprofit you're working with and they're not in good standing, call us and we will look into figuring out if it's because of some unpaid taxes or some hold. And the final thing that I'll mention is sales use and tax exemptions. So your nonprofits are eligible for an exemption on sales use and use taxes. We renew those every 5 years, and we are working to modernize some of the systems, but it's still pretty old, and we're pretty undermanned in that department. So if you have nonprofits that reach out to you who are concerned because they haven't gotten their exemption letters or they're overdue or they're not sure what to do, just send them on our way and we'll make sure that gets done.
Very helpful. So
clarify 501c3s.
501c3s.
Yeah.
Yep, 501c3s.
So 3 quick things. One, colleagues text myself if you have a comment or question, not the iPad. Eve will share with us your contact information, extremely important.
So I gave my cards out, but also I'm going to send a follow-up email after this, just thanking you for your time, but also it'll have all my information and the transition.
We can share all of that. And then secondly, I will share the photos of tax forms or questions that people have. I will hold the photos of potholes that people send me, but I'll send you the tax forms that
we
they
can't
send.
help with potholes.
No, we try our best to help there too. Council Vice President Wheaton.
Thanks. Well, thank you so much. It's really exciting to welcome you again, Madam Comptroller. Welcome home. And congrats on a very productive first 74 days in office. I'm curious, you started talking about this a little bit, but if you could expound a bit on your vision for the field offices and how you foresee that being different from perhaps how it was used in the past, Wheaton specifically, but more broadly. And then related to that, any plans that you might have at this point in expanding access to the earned income tax credit and making sure that residents who are eligible are getting it. This is something that Montgomery County has really stepped up, as you know.
We're doing great with the local EIT.
So we have the best match, most significant match. When the state stepped up, we
met it.
stepped up to meet it, but we still recognize that there are a lot of people who are eligible for the earned income tax credit who don't get it, and we'd like to partner with you more and just wanted to better understand any plans that you might have for that.
Great question. So on the field offices, so our branch offices, the staff in our branch offices are tax professionals, right? They can help people fill out their taxes. They work with MVA holds, and they are busy. And with everybody I've met, they've all told me, well, they used to be able to go out in the field more, but they can't now because they're so busy. They can't leave. And so what we're trying to do, over the long term, we would like to increase the number of staff in each branch office and to have a dedicated person who is the sort of outward-facing, branch liaison who goes out in the community. We don't have the staff to do that right now. So what we are looking to do over the next 6 to 9 months is to hire regional public engagement officers who will have 2 or 3 offices each that they work with. Actually for Wheaton, it would probably just Montgomery County would have one person who is dedicated to Montgomery County, Howard County, and possibly Anne Arundel, and that person would have a region where they're always reaching out. They'll be in the Wheaton office sometimes. They'll be out in the community going to businesses. If there's, you have a group of constituents and you say, hey, I'd love to have somebody come talk about what you all can do in the Comptroller's office. That person can be your person to come and talk. If that person can't, Eve can, so we'll have people who can be out and about explaining the services that we offer is the goal. Because I think I want people to know that they can come to those offices to get the substantive help that they need, but also when we're out in the field, I want us to be able to do substantive work as well. So if there's, the Wheaton Taste of Wheaton, right, which is coming up, having a table there where we have somebody who can help people fill out their forms for unclaimed property, help people, understand what tax services they can get at the Wheaton branch, and what the hours are, or what if there's something simple, can help them with that right then and there. We want to be able to do that as well. So that's something I'm excited about. And the earned income tax credit, huge priority for us. Really excited to be supportive of the Family Prosperity Act. We're seeing that it looks like it's going to get through the General Assembly this year, which is, of course, to extend permanently the increase in the state EITC that we first enacted when I was a member of the General Assembly. So one of the things that we're excited about is looking at replicating different models around the country and different pilot programs for how to increase uptake of the EITC. One of the things that we are noticing and starting to track more is people who, this is interesting, claim the federal EITC, but not the state one. And so, one of the things that we'd like to do is send direct communications to everybody who claims the federal EITC and not the state EITC to let them know that they should claim both. So we're looking at different ways that we can do targeted outreach to specific people who we know would qualify. I think over the long term, there's work to be done to think about how people could automatically qualify.
Federal, you should
right?
get state
Yeah,
automatically.
Exactly. But certainly right now, I think the intervening step is to do that outreach and say, make sure you check this box, make sure you write this number down so that people are claiming it as well. And we're always open to ideas. I think it's really important for us to be visible and get out there with the cash campaign, invite us centers and others to make sure people know about it. But you're only ever going to reach so many people doing that kind of outreach. You've got to really be intentional, I think, and focused. And that's why we want to use a data-driven approach to reach out to people who are owed the EITC.
If there's any way we can help, particularly in the automatic piece, because I think that is where we need to head.
I agree.
Love to help you. Obviously, Montgomery County has been advocating for this. It's probably the state's most effective poverty fighting tool.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We have programs and we want people to use them.
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So there is a queue and there's about a half hour left. So Councilmember Stewart.
Try to be shorter.
No. Substantive is good.
Yes.
Councilmember Stewart, then Katz, then Albernaz, then Sales, then Ludke. Malcolm, are you in here?
I'll be in the.
Then Belvin. Okay.
Great. Well, I'll just piggyback on what Council Vice President Friedson said, and I love the idea that you're doing targeted outreach because people don't know what they don't know.
Right.
And I saw that a ton as mayor. It's that people who were really struggling, and we're like, well, what about all these programs? Did you apply for this, and this? And like, we didn't know about it.
Right.
So one of the things, looking at your legislative priorities, and I know the Supporting All Taxpayers Act, it did make it through crossover, but if that makes it through the legislative process, how does that fit into your plans?
Sure. This is the Taxpayer Advocate Office. Yes. So one of the things that we want to be intentional about is driving systemic changes within our tax system and within the Office of the Comptroller. So one of those changes that we're seeking to make through legislation is to create an Office of the Taxpayer Advocate. The IRS has a Taxpayer Advocate. More than half the states have offices of the Taxpayer Advocate. We believe that this is would be a great addition to the Comptroller's office. And the Office of the Taxpayer Advocate does both challenging casework, right, to advocate for the taxpayer and work with them and guide them through the process. Also would have a much more substantive website with tax questions and that they would maintain. But, and this is the part I'm most excited about, would also be looking at sort of the high flyer challenges that we have in the Office of Taxpayer Services and our Revenue Administration Division. And saying, okay, here are the challenges that we're seeing encountered the most by taxpayers. Here's how we should fix them. And then really diving in on those systemic issues and driving the office forward to be more of an advocate for taxpayers. And just have that both the look into what our taxpayer services is doing, but have the space to step back and be addressing some of these issues on a more systemic basis, not sort of just trying to play catch up all the time with everybody who has a problem. So I'm really excited about that. If the bill passes, which it looks like it's going to pass, we're hopeful that that passes this year. It would be in the next budget cycle. So we would have the position starting July 1, 2025, because it's bills are always like a year behind when they're impacted. So starting July 1, 2025 is when we would work to get that office up and running off the ground so that we could move forward. But yeah, I'm really excited about it. And I should also say, I think ideas that you all have on things that we should be looking into, that would be a good office, right? Eve and the Taxpayer Advocate can meet with you all to identify, hey, I'm hearing constituents say this or that, multiple times. Then they can look into those and do more targeted investigations, right? So, yeah. Thank you.
Councilmember Katz.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. It's always good to see you and your entire team. Thank you for bringing them as well. First off, when you said that you were the 34th comptroller, I thought Louis Goldstein was the only comptroller Maryland ever had. So, and he knew how to say Colbert County, not Calvert. My question is about estimated taxes. Is there a way that you don't have to mail in your check? Are you working on a system where
you can pay online?
Yes.
So you actually can pay online now.
You can?
Yes. It is just challenging to find. But yes, so our website is pretty dated and it's very difficult to navigate. I will say our URL also is marylandtaxes.gov, which makes me sad. It's not the only thing we do.
Right, yeah.
And so we are looking, it's a priority for me to update our website with the goal of making it more user-friendly so that you can figure out how to pay your estimated quarterly taxes online. And that's part of the reason we hired a CIO. We also are moving forward, and I'm hopeful that either at the end of this year or first quarter next year, we will be creating the first stage of an online portal where eventually you will be able to see all your tax interactions. You'll have a login and a username. That will take a few more years for the individual income side of things, but for corporate taxes, for alcohol and tobacco, things that are already online in our new system, that will be available at the end of this year and early next year too. But we're getting there.
Good. That's the best answer I could have asked. Thank you very much.
A satisfied customer. Councilmember Albornoz.
Thank you. So it was an honor to serve on the transition team, especially the local government division. There were some fantastic recommendations, starting with sort of this concept of a no wrong door, because we often get questions from constituents that should be directed to the comptroller's office or vice versa. And so establishing a clear line of communication was obviously important. But another was focusing on cultural humility. And the Wheaton office, actually, I've heard great feedback as well, but accessing it from Germantown or parts north, can be challenging. And so meeting the community where they are is something that clearly you are all about and built during your campaign, which was one of the most impressive any of us have seen statewide. So keeping with that momentum, what are your plans to ensure that, beyond translation, which is important, but we're meeting the community where they are?
It's a great question. I would love to be able to say, we're going to open more offices. I would love to open more offices. It's entirely dependent on my budget, that is, set by the Governor General Assembly. Thank you. So I think, one of the things that we're interested in exploring is during the pandemic, we did many virtual appointments, is thinking about how we can make it easier to file for or to get online to ask for virtual appointments, where we have a team that's set up, and it doesn't even matter where they're actually sitting, but they're dedicated to, so if you are in Germantown and you can't make it to Wheaton, you can have that virtual appointment, have a face-to-face with somebody. You can even, hold up and show them your notice and what it says, and then you will be able to, then you can mail in after the fact anything that you need to. So we want to make sure that we're also really pushing out the virtual appointment option if we don't have a physical space where people can go. But in addition, we want our, one of the goals of having these regional public engagement officers or these regional engagement officers is to make sure that we are getting out into the communities physically, right? So that we have, when there's Darnstown days or, whatever, there's somebody there and they can see that, there's a table with the comptroller's materials, and there are materials in multilingual options as well. We don't want to rely on Google Translate. We want to have professionally done, correct and accurate translated materials as well. So those are the things, I think in an ideal world, we'd love to have more offices around the state. I think it's not in the budget right now. So our goal, I think, is to, over the next year, as we're revamping our website, to make sure that we're creating places and options where it's easier to see where you can do virtual appointments as well.
That's phenomenal. And just final point, just a suggestion as a follow-up. Please. So Councilmembers Lutke and Sales and I are on the HHS committee, and all of us have been incredibly impressed with our minority health initiatives and program, which have done an outstanding job of reaching the community where they are in a way that's super creative, because the constructs of the chambers and they're great, but they don't reach everyone.
Right.
And many of the folks we are even trying to reach at the county level are not part of any infrastructure system.
Yep.
So I'd suggest looking at organizations such as that to be able to get your message out, and we can provide a list of other potential tools that will help expand your all's reach.
Yeah, no, that would be great, really. I think every county operates a little bit differently and has different organizations that are effective at getting out into the community. So I think that's a great note. Even I can make sure we follow up and sort of hear from you on, if you were us, right, what are the organizations, county government based or otherwise, that we should really be making sure that we embed our materials with. So that's great. Thank you.
Thank you. I yield back to you, Mr. President.
Yeah, no need to reinvent the wheel. Piggybacking opportunities. Right?
Totally. Yep.
Councilmember Sales.
All right. Thank you, Mr. President. So, Comptroller, you mentioned that earlier this year we had the software breakdown, and now we're trying to safeguard the software. You hired the Chief Information Officer.
Yep.
Will you be extending the deadline for the tax completion this year? And how else are we being proactive? You mentioned the meetings. Do you have to come into the office to take advantage of those meetings, or you can do them from home?
You can do them from home. Yep. So we're not going to extend. April 18th is the deadline. Okay. When we weren't, during that week, it ended up being a week. During a week that our tax processing system was down, we were still receiving them. We just weren't processing them.
Okay.
So, but we caught up in 3 days. So we processed everything that had been out, which was about 250,000 returns got filed that week. We caught up in about 3 days. So we have, I forget the last number, if it was 1.5 million tax returns processed so far. This season, it's more than that because that was Monday. But we are actually, except for that 1 week, we have processed more tax returns more quickly than in any previous year. So we have made, like I mentioned, there were some leadership changes, some realignments. Our chief deputy comptroller has also made some leadership changes in our divisions. So we're really happy with, there's always improvements to be made, and there, I follow our social media, and I'm like, this person hasn't gotten an answer, like why haven't we figured this out, and those things just happen, sometimes some of this is also fraud detection, right? We have very sophisticated fraud detection activities going on in the comptroller's office, and so sometimes, something will get flagged. Maybe it's nothing, it's usually nothing, but we've just got to make sure. And so sometimes it does take a few more days or a couple more weeks for people to get their refunds because something got flagged for some reason. So we're always just trying to be really vigilant about that too. But April 18th, it's coming up quickly. Yes, it is. I heard that like a few days after April 18th, just the mail that we get is like bags and bags. Because we still take in so many mail.
You'll be in the basement of the RAD building.
Yes, exactly. I was like, we're all just going to go over and undo, like open envelopes for a few days. Yeah.
Well, I know that we're always looking for extra resources, and you talked about restructuring. Internally, I know that there's an unclaimed property fund within the comptroller's office. Yep. Can you tell us a little bit more about the structure, the accountability, and any proactive work that's happening to ensure that resources that are owed to residents get out?
Yeah, absolutely. So unclaimed property is fascinating little stepchild. And it's interesting because in other states, no other state has a comptroller's office like we do, that has revenue and accounting and unclaimed property and, public works and, state retirement and pension. It's just, this is not how, and it's amazing. But our unclaimed property section for years has been part of another division when it's really it's its own thing. And so we pulled it out. So it's its own stand-up division now within the Office of Law and Oversight. And we did that in part because we want to make sure that we're being more proactive about getting people's unclaimed property back to them. So we we do quarterly postcards mailings. We sent out one this week. It was the first one with my signature on it to anybody that we know who has new unclaimed property that they can that they haven't claimed. And before we did that, we updated our website a little bit. So just the web page for the unclaimed property is much more clear now. You see where you put your numbers, the number on the postcard that you got in. You look up your name. The next step is to put it all online. So right now you still have to print off a PDF. So the next step is to automate it so that it's an online form and you hit send and it gets to us automatically. And so we're, focused on doing that as well. There was a law that passed last year that we are a little bit concerned about in terms of the effects that it will have on people's ability to claim their unclaimed property. So we're looking, it just went into effect October 1st. It sort of passed under the radar. So we're going to be looking into that and just making sure that it doesn't negatively impact anybody. We'll probably be doing a little bit of reporting on it at the end of this year. But there's even an association, the National Association of Unclaimed Property Administrators, that I am now a member of. So we're, excited to be a national leader in reuniting people with their, usually money. We also have lots of unclaimed property that has no value in the basement of our building in Baltimore. You'll want some, lockets or hair or baby hair or any sort of random things, you can come up and check it out sometimes.
How long do you have to keep it?
Forever.
You have to keep it forever.
I feel like we are trying to change that.
That'd be a good idea.
Of the Comptroller Museum.
Yeah, oh my gosh. Yeah.
Comptroller's Museum.
I will say over the years that one Sunday morning when I get the Washington Post, I still get the print edition, and I thumb through the voluminous document. And there's still nothing for me, but there's plenty for other people. I could only be so lucky. Right? Councilmember Lukey.
I'm excited that unclaimed property has its own office now. There was a case maybe like 5 years ago, 4 years ago, that like, and it, went through up and down and sideways in the courts, and it was like fascinating, but it was all fixated on the unclaimed property issue, and it was sort of oddly, nerdily amusing in the legal sense. To Councilmember Albernaz's point about connections with the community and the work that you're doing, and everything is, of course, very people-centric. I wanted to make a pitch for the libraries to be also incorporated, because especially for individuals who don't have access at home to internet services, the libraries are the place where they're going to go for that kind of resource. And to plug Only Days on April 29th, that's coming up.
Okay.
But you've talked a lot about measures you've already engaged in order to facilitate better communication with members of the public, and of course state systems, and I was about to say the state's systems, they're no longer mine, are clunky, and to the resident, they don't understand, or the business that's waiting to be paid from a procurement, they don't understand FEMAS and where does SDAT fit in and why is it different. So what is currently the biggest obstacle you're facing in sort of seamlessly modernizing technology for your work?
Sure, it's a great question. So, and just to make sure everyone's on the same page, so if you are, an entity who's won a grant and it's going to go through the Department of Housing and Community Development, you're a CDC, you're getting money. DHCD, that department has to send us, the Comptroller's office, the receipt, whatever you want to call it, showing that it's owed, and then we are able to process the payment to the entity. So it comes out, the check comes out of our office, it's got my signature on it, but the authority to write that check comes from DHCD. So right now, one of the challenges is that if you're that CDC waiting for that money, you don't know where the holdup is. Like you don't know if it's at DHCD, you don't know if it's at the Comptroller's office. We process the receipts that we get that are full, like everything, we have all the information. 95% of them we process within 5 days. And so we feel really good about our ability to turn things around. But we, in order to keep that ability, we need to have the right number of staff. If we are understaffed, we cannot do it. And these are, thousands of checks on a regular basis. So, that's one of we are working to make sure we can build up our team. We also need to build up our team because we are going to need to move to a new system, and our agency is working with Treasurer Davis, working with Secretary Grady at DBM, working with DoIT, but we're going to be the lead agency on moving FEMAS, which is our Financial Management Information System, our legacy system, moving that to a new system. That's going to take time. Years. It has, it interfaces with every agency, every university, so many vendors. It's just going to be the most complicated IT project that the state has ever been involved in. So it's going to be really exciting. But we need to make sure that we have the staff and the team in place and prepared to do that. So I'd say right now, we are passing legislation. So we have a bill in right now that directs, that has the General Assembly directing us to do this work. And we felt it was really important for the General Assembly and the governor to put their imprimatur on this project in particular because it will involve every agency. And so it can't just be me as the Comptroller and the Treasurer going out and saying, please MDOT, we need you to comply with this. It needs to be the General Assembly saying, oh yeah, this is going to happen. We're going to have one state system. We're all going to be working on this together. That way we can see what each other is doing. We can have an online portal so the public can see in and see where their money is. And we will get there, but it will take time. So, but thank you.
Good question. Councilmember Balcom?
Sure. Just a note before my question. We just, in terms of your communications and virtual meetings, I think that's fabulous. We just met with the Montgomery County Retirees Association, and they reminded us that not everybody is moving as quickly in the technology realm as others. So from that perspective, I think the virtual meetings are fabulous. just
But not everyone.
but not everyone
Totally. That's why the
wants to
branch
do that.
offices are so
Yeah.
important.
Yep. And then from the no wrong door issue, we're trying to look at that in a lot of things that we do here in the county. We talked probably a year or so ago about entrepreneurs and businesses, and from the outreach perspective, businesses, entrepreneurs, minority-owned businesses, immigrant businesses, they just don't know where to go. And I think that, and especially from a taxation perspective, it's complicated. And I think that the proactive outreach, and I think the obstacle there is we don't know who they are.
Right.
And so can you just talk a little bit about reaching out to entrepreneurs and businesses as they begin, as they start?
Sure, absolutely. It's really important to me. We need to grow our small businesses and support entrepreneurs in the state of Maryland, like period, or we will not grow our economy, our revenues will decline, we will not be able to do what we need to do. So we are, one of the things that I'm really excited about is sort of the combination of public engagement and economic development outreach. So our new Deputy Comptroller for Policy, Public Works, and Investments is named Ben Siegel. He was a consultant to the Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation for many years. We just met with LEDC, the Latino Economic. We were just meeting with LEDC, and we can't believe we stole Ben. So we're really excited to have Ben on board and to make sure that we can identify somebody who will be our point person working with entrepreneurs, both with Eva's team to do the engagement work and also with Ben's team on the policy and economic development focus. To let those businesses know where to go. Because sometimes you're right, they just don't know, and we want to make sure that we are getting that we're building the connections between us and LEDC, between us and MCEDC, between us and CDFIs in the states. Because that way when a local entrepreneur, like the woman I met this morning who owns a shop right across from the National Capital Parks and Planning Building. I can't say that acronym, but I can say the full name. When it's so hard. I'm sorry, Gabe, but it's very hard.
I know it is.
Parks and Rec, when she goes to LEDC and says, I got a letter about my taxes, I don't know what to do, LEDC isn't like, oh shoot, we don't know what to do, but that they have a contact, right? So that they can immediately call us and say, hey, we have some casework for you, right? So even if that woman doesn't know who we are, ideally she will know about us, but even if she doesn't, she goes to the contact that she knows who knows us. And that, I think, is the most efficient way for us to reach a lot of those entrepreneurs. And also to just put together new ideas and initiatives for them on how to register as an MBE, how to understand that MDOT system, right? It's all run through MDOT, how to understand the public works system. One of the things that our new BPW director, who came from Johnny O's shop, one of the things she's really focused on with our team is identifying barriers in our procurement regulations. They exist. We need to, make sure that we're uncovering some of them and making it easier. I was looking at the template for an RFP of over $200,000. The template that the Office of State Procurement, which is in the Department of General Services, sends out, the template is 184 pages.
Oh, no.
I mean, it's just, that's before you put in any of your information. There's already 184 pages of material. So, I mean, if you're a small business and you're interested in, doing lawn service for SHA, I mean, you have to get through, it's incredible. It's just these huge barriers that we've erected, and so we really need to rethink a lot of what we're doing in terms of procurement and public works.
One tiny little tweak.
Yeah.
On the DOT MBE page, it's confusing because when people land there, they think, well, I'm not doing a transportation project.
Right,
Why am I on
right,
this page?
Right. Yes.
It's just so confusing.
Yeah.
So big, bright, everyone fill this out regardless. And they have made changes probably in the past couple of years, but that throws people off
Totally.
all the time.
It is confusing, and actually we, when we redo our website, one of the things that we want, In other states, if you were starting a business, it would make sense to go to the comptroller's office to both start a business and get your MBE certification, because that, we're the one that businesses interact with because they pay our taxes to us on a regular basis. So we want to create a whole page about running a business in Maryland on our website. So even though it will direct you eventually to SSTAT's website to register your business, the explanation of where you are going and what there is to do will be there, so that you can read, okay, how to start a small business in Maryland. Here are the steps. You're going to go to this agency to do this. You're going to go to this agency to do this, and then you're going to stay here at the comptroller's office to do this. So it's really clear. And I think hopefully that will help people as well, just having it all in one place. So, and we'll be very open to ideas. Another thought that just occurs to me is, linking basically to the county's economic development offices as well, right? So that if you're starting in a county, in Montgomery County, here's MCEDC, or here are other resources. So we should talk with you all about that too when we're doing this. Yeah.
Our regional service centers could be an asset.
Oh, yeah.
We've got 5 of them. They're strategic.
Oh yeah, those are great centers.
Well, the fresh eyes that you and your team have on the entire scope of work and all the different portfolios is incredibly refreshing, and the fresh eyes that we have in this majority new council, I think we are simpatico in that way, and want to remain strong partners with you, so that all the programs that we stand up and the programs that you support at the state, our residents have access to them, and utilize them, and that on the back end, that's the front end, but the back end, there's efficiency and streamlining, so that we have more resources to provide our residents. And that is the commonality. That's what a lot of this conversation has been focused about. And so we'll all be close in touch and make sure we get cell phones and send pictures of tax documents. Any closing comments?
No, I just say, please bring us your ideas and your thoughts and your questions and your, hey, I found this challenge, want you to be aware of this. I always used to remind my constituents all the time, if you don't educate me, I can't advocate for you. And I say that again, if you are not telling us what the challenges are, we can't fix them. And also, many of you are new. We're all sort of in this together, and just ask for your ideas for what we can be doing more of. When you see a space where you're like, we need somebody to help fill this. This is a service that needs to be done. Keep us in mind. We are here to serve and to advocate to build communities that are more equitable and more resilient and more prosperous.
Great.
So thank you.
Fantastic. To be continued.
Yeah,
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Notice we came in under budget.
Maybe.
Privileged
Mr. President, I just wanted to say thank you for joining us today on the last day of Women's History Month.
There you go.
Congratulations again on making history.
Me too, to this woman majority council.
There we go.
Thank you. Yes, great. Thanks so much.